Hello everybody, let's check out the new Specialized Turbo Levo. Hello everybody, welcome. It is new bike day and today we're going to be taking a look at the new Specialized Levo 4. We were lucky enough to have Joe Buckley, the product manager, as well as Austin Hackett-Klaub, who is the suspension engineering technician on the Ride Dynamic team, come up to Bend, deliver us the bike. Today we're going to be taking a look at the inside of this Genie shock, learning about some of Specialized's goals in the development of the new Levo, what they were really hoping to achieve with some pretty drastic improvements to power delivery, the modularity of the battery, as well as what they were looking to keep out of such a crowd-pleasing, really well-rounded and versatile eMTB. So let's go for a ride, take a look, and listen to what these folks have to say. Let's go learn about the new Levo 4.
Mr. Buck, Levo product manager, getting after it.
Yeah. All right, guys, so here we are, Levo 4. Talk to us about where you're at in Auburn and what you guys do to make these bikes ride the way they ride.
Yeah, can do. So I was responsible for the tune for this shock, helped with development a bit for the Genie as a whole.
So from the last Levo, Gen 3, I guess, right? We'll call it Gen 3 to Gen 4. They're both still 150 mil travel bikes. Is there anything different besides that this is a Genie shock and the last one did not?
So there are subtle kinematic changes. It is so similar to Stumpy, similar direction there. About the same leverage rate as Levo SL as well. So it is a little bit less progressive. Starting rate is a little bit lower, but ending rate's very similar. But it's a very subtle change from that. Most of the change comes from the shock. The thing that comes from the Genie shock is the big volume feel, which you get small bump compliance, a bump gobbling feel. It really runs over bumps super well. And then where that Genie shock cuts off that extra volume at 70% of the travel gives you that, end to mid to end stroke responsiveness back you need, the ending bottom out force you need, and kind of blends the best of both worlds there. So we really like the spring for that, kind of independently tuned portions of the travel that, really give you a great bump gobbling feel and the support you need.
And Buck, where do you step in on this project? Obviously, based on the title and what you do, and the last time we saw you for the last Levo, I'm sure you guys have been busy. So what were you working on with this thing?
Especially the product manager role is kind of set the direction for the bike, do a lot of in-field time, talk to shops, talk to riders, understand what the trends are, what riders want, and then funnel all that down into what the features need to be for the bike.
Can you tell us a little bit about battery and drive unit specs on the Levo 4?
Sure, yeah. So there are two new motors. One is the S-Works motor, which is on your S-Works bike here. That'll be available only on the S-Works. It is completely new construction. It's no more belt driven, gear driven only, steel gears. There's a lot of work that went into keeping the NVH or the noise level very low. In going away from that belt, we wanted to try and keep that quiet, nice, quiet, good sounding motor. So construction is very similar in the two. Both have steel gears. We did a number of tricks to keep the NVH or the noise level low. One of them was decoupling the e-machine from both sides of the motor housing. So now it's coupled just to one, which helps keep the noise resonance down. Another was potting the windings. So the coil windings in the e-machine are now encased in a resin-like material, keeps that noise level down as well. And then a special diamond-like coating on the gears, keep the friction down and the noise level down too. So it's a really nice sounding motor as you've been witnessing today.
It's definitely quiet for sure.
Yep. Power increases and torque increases for both motors. So the S-Works gets an increase of torque to 111 Newton meters and peak power of 720 watts. And then the non-S-Works motor goes from 90 to 101 Newton meters. So still over 10% difference there. And the watts or peak power is 666. For now, at least US bikes, you have the option to change it to a class 3. It means just the speed limit, not a throttle. Does not change the power. It only changes the speed at which the motor stops assisting you. You get this warning when you choose it. Just hit your center press again, and then when you stop, it'll say class 3. When you start again, usually goes away. It's just something there so that the rider realizes, hey, you're in that class 3 setting. You know, if you're in a place you shouldn't be, tone it back. In the batteries, again, going to rider feedback, riders talking about configurable battery setups. Not everybody does the same ride, so not everybody needs the same battery. We wanted to make them shorter, again, for fitment in the frame, but we also wanted to make a couple different options in that configurable style. So the main battery that comes with the bike is 840 watt hour. Again, helps feed the more powerful motors. We do make a 600 watt hour, a bit shorter, mounts in the same fashion, drops a kilogram or a couple pounds off the weight of the bike if you're doing shorter rides. We also have a range extender which lives in the cage. That's a 280 watt hour range extender. It can be paired with either a motor or it can be used solo. So if you're doing shuttle runs or you have lift access to bike parts, you don't really need much battery. Take your main battery out, you save 5 pounds, and you got enough battery to power for plenty of climbing on shuttle days. It powers the derailleur that is directly plugged in, so you don't have to worry about charging those batteries. And if you ran any of the batteries to completely zero, you would not have to worry about shifting. It'll still work. There's enough reserves in all of the batteries in there to keep shifting.
Okay, and back at the office, you had said if you were only running that range extender, you don't get 100% of the power out of the drive unit. Is that correct?
That's correct. So there's 14 cells in there. These are very powerful motors, so drawing that much energy out of the battery would damage it for such a small battery. So the power is reduced to 50%, but you still get 100% of the torque. So plenty of torque to get you around. There's plenty of power still to do what you want to do, especially if you're shuttling or whatever. I've even done complete rides, like hour and a half rides if you're metering down. You can get a pretty good ride in, yeah.
Accessing and removing battery looks like just was that a 5 mil Allen?
Super easy. Pull your SWAT tool out of your steer tube. It's a 5 mil Allen. It's in a way less dirty, nasty area than on the previous bike. You pull the door off. The door is separate from the battery, which is cool. So if you want to swap battery, you're doing multi-battery rides, just put it right in. The battery pulls out with the pull strap. You slide new battery in, and there's also SWAT storage above the battery, which is really cool. So you can keep a tube, some CO2s, tire lever, whatever you need for like trail emergencies.
And that fits with both 800 or just the smaller battery?
Fits with 800.
Okay.
Yep. One of the big things we have is a different take on MicroTune than we've had in the past. So MicroTune of today sets your assistance level and your peak power at the same level and breaks it up into 10% increments from 0 to 100. So you can kind of meter out that power if you really want to milk your range. The trouble with that is that once you hit that peak power, that's all you're getting. You're not getting any more. So if you're coming around a turn and there's an unexpected steep climb, you have to bang your positive button while you're downshifting to make it up the climb. Now we have a dynamic MicroTune, which still breaks your assistance level into 10% increments, but the peak power is at 100 for every setting. So if you're in your 10% setting, come around, there's that steep climb that you weren't expecting, you just pedal harder. And that it's a dynamic system where it measures how much power you're putting in. When it sees, hey, you're putting in more than that 10%, boom, it meters it up and gets you enough power to get up the climb. So really kind of you're just hitting your plus and minus buttons a lot less. It's more autonomous, if you will. There's another new mode we have called Auto, and that's if you don't really want to touch it at all. It's going to get you more range than riding around in turbo wheel, but you can still get full power out of it. It wouldn't get you as much range as if you're using dynamic MicroTune though. But again, if you don't want to mess with the assistance levels, auto mode is your mode.
And shuttle mode for those who maybe don't know what that means?
Shuttle mode is if you're in your Eco Turbo Trail mode, you turn on shuttle mode. It's basically a mode where you have the least amount of input from the rider necessary to get all your power. Okay. So if you're just worried about getting up the hill as fast as you want to go.
Soft pedal special.
Yep, exactly. Okay. So connectivity with the app is all the same. You can still set up all your display parameters that you want to see. You can tune your motor, you can do diagnostics. The cool thing is that if you don't want to use your app for a lot of the tuning, you don't need to pull your phone out at all. You can do that with the new remote and the system. You go into the setup mode by pushing a couple of the buttons. You can toggle through, change the amount of support in your Eco, Trail, and Turbo. You can adjust responsiveness from the motor. You can adjust the amount of overrun you're getting for climbing up over steep technical stuff when you stop pedaling.
And that back pedal feature where the back pedaling cuts out the overrun.
Exactly, yeah. So there's a lot more stuff you can do just without ever pulling out your phone. If you are a phone guy though, and you're using the app to record your rides and stuff, now you can set up your phone to auto pair and auto record. So if your Bluetooth's on your phone, you walk up, turn on your bike, pairs. As soon as you start riding, it records your ride. And then once you've stopped riding, say you stop riding for an hour or whatever, it'll save that ride and upload it. Another cool feature is Apple Find My in here. So if you wanted to track where your bike's at, you would pair your bike with your phone, just like you would pair it with your Macintosh computer or whatever, and you can see where your bike's at. If say if you're traveling with it or whatever, you can see if it made it on the plane, or if it didn't make it on the plane, where it might be. That type of thing can be pretty handy.
Right on, that's super cool. Any changes in front triangle stiffness due to that side opening?
Stiffness isn't big changes, no, but strength, yes. Okay. So when we were originally laying out the bike and we were trying to figure out, how are we going to have the battery remove and have the swap feature inside, our first thought was, let's go to the Levo 1 layout where it just falls right out the bottom. But we were like, well, we are a little more high tech these days, so let's look at FEA and see what structurally makes sense. And we were surprised to learn that doing it on the side was stronger. And we were actually surprised when we put these first bikes first frames out of the mold on the test machine into the head tube ultimate. So you put a steel fork in there and you apply load till the head tube snaps off. We found that it blew away where Levo 3 is today. And we already knew a lot of riders out there want to put a 170 or even 180 fork on there. So we were like, well, let's see what it does, let's take it to the max. And so this frame will be, we'll let riders do up to 180 millimeter fork without voiding the warranty. So really, really strong.
Very cool. That kind of leads me to a question I wasn't expecting about asking, but what about folks that are doing like the long travel links out back?
Yeah, these are compatible with coil shocks and stuff. We'll see what the future brings with aftermarket stuff, and then there may be some tricks in the future that we can do longer travel stuff. We'll see.
Exciting.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, I think that's enough talking. Let's keep riding. Well, guys, we got a couple of runs here on some of our favorite local test trails. Again, far from a long-term review, but figure this bike's gonna be really exciting and something you'll all be looking for more information on. So standouts, first impressions, what do we think? This is actually my first experience on a Genie shock. I've heard Rob rave about it on the stump jumper. He really dug it. It was neat getting to work with Austin and open it up, look inside, see that cutaway shock. So I suspect I'm gonna add a little bit more in that first chamber to see what that additional mid-stroke support would feel like. We did air up for the second half of the ride day, and I definitely did not reach full travel despite speeds increasing, setting some drops a little bit bigger. But it would be nice just to know how big of a difference it would make, and if I could maybe drop a couple of those PSI that we added at the very end of the day. It would be nice to maybe get back down to like 237 and see if adding that in that mid-stroke support chamber would allow me to get a little more of a fluttery and soft feel. It definitely didn't get harsher. I did notice when we aired up the fork, we went all the way up to 98 PSI, which is a little more, it was a little stiffer than I wanted. It prevented me from bottoming out, so I am gonna play around with volume reducers in the fork. It's got 2 in it right now. I might go to 3 and drop a couple PSI because it just felt a little bit firm and stiff off the top. So moving away from suspension, which overall I think felt really good. It did feel pretty linear in a good way, and it did progress once I got into that secondary chamber, which was really nice because there are some 4 to 5.5-ish foot drops to pretty flat landings. In a 52 pound bike, I think this weighs right 50 pounds. landing to flat with a 190-pound rider was impressive that I wasn't like really ringing it off that bottom out bumper too hard. Something else that I would like to play with, I don't know if we'll have the opportunity, would be to go to that smaller 600 watt-hour battery. Dropping, you know, over 2 pounds out of the bike would be pretty enticing to me. And you know, we did a 3,700 foot elevation day today, and I still have 37% battery left. And we did a lot of that ride in turbo and kind of straight lining ourselves back up some really steep stuff in some soft, wet conditions. So I think a 600 watt-hour battery would be just perfect, especially if I needed that power more. Like I could come back to the parking lot, grab that range extender for that one last lap, and I'd have a lighter bike for most of my ride. Fit and finish, you know, we didn't really focus a ton on that earlier, but you know, these cable ports are nice and tidy. The little plugs that they have at the front of the head tube, so if you're not using stuff, is pretty cool. The rest of the paint, obviously, I'm gonna have to wash this thing and find out. It looks like I've already scratched it pretty good, so not sure exactly how thick or durable that clear coat is. It looks like a ride wrap would be a solid suggestion on this thing. We do have very sandy, you know, pumicey dirt, and when it's wet and sticks on the paint and rubs, that's kind of like sandpaper, so not much holds up to that. But obviously it's a bummer when you get a really expensive brand new bike and on ride one you just haze the crap out of it, but that is life, I guess. The rest of the bike, I thought Geo felt really good. Slightly steeper seat tube angle put me in a really solid climbing position. We went back up, Buck and I, after an unfortunate couple of moments for some other folks there off the camera. We decided to do a little bonus extra credit loop and climb up a downhill, just because nobody's out here on a weekday. And so we found this new double black downhill trail and climbed up it in turbo. And boy, that steep climbing position, the power, the overrun, I was really stoked at how quickly I was able to get comfortable, command and control this bike on some very techy rock slabs and tight little maneuvers. It was not really low, so I wasn't hitting a ton. The bike's not super long, so I was able to kind of thread the needle between a lot of stuff. So from a climbing perspective, really neat. We had two other guys with us, you know, Dustin and Robert, on some Bosch bikes, and you know, this thing was just dropping fools like left and right. It was pretty crazy. Buck and Austin said that they were working a bit harder than I was to stay on me. So the extra power of the S-Works motor was definitely noticeable, because those guys are definitely in better shape and ride bikes more than I do. And so they were able to keep up with me, and I was not working super duper hard. Like, I mean, elevated heart rate, but I was at like, you know, 60, 75%, and they were probably closer to like 85, 90%. I could be totally wrong, guys. Don't quote me on that, but you know. But yeah, all in all, the S-Works motor is extremely powerful. It didn't have enough time to really play with all the different settings and learn everything really well, but I liked the smart auto tune, or sorry, the smart MicroTune was really neat, because there would be sections where like I would have the bike in like 2 of 100. Round a corner, there'd be a really steep rock slab, and I would just get on the pedals and it would give me like a full bit of power. So that was really neat, because you could conserve battery in a really nice way and then get the juice you need without having to like stand up, shift gears, manage post height, and be like micro tuning your way up in 10% increments. So that I think is a really good and nice addition in this bike. Any other thoughts or questions you folks might have, please leave them down below. We are going to be keeping this bike for quite a while for our long-term review. Of course, we are going to be bringing it with us to our full power e-bike shootout, which is happening in just a month. And we're going to be naming one of our supporting members very soon as our guest tester. So if you guys would like a chance to come out and be a guest tester at one of our bike shootouts, enter into our weekly product giveaways, or write reviews and test product for us on the website, check out the link down below or click this little box here and go check out our members platform. We're doing a ton of awesome giveaways, discounts to brands, and of course, bringing folks out to test and review bikes for us at shootouts. So thank you guys very much for watching. Thanks to Specialized for driving up here and bringing us this bike to test out. And stay tuned for a lot more reviews and content here at the Loam Wolf.